Well, this time around, I would like to talk about how I got interested in playing the piano after 70 years of being away from it. This video is a suggestion of my sister. I was telling her about this, and she said, "Oh, you really need to do a video about this because people will be interested in hearing about it." One of my motivations for getting back to the piano was to try to keep my brain from getting any older any sooner than it had to. And I thought that would be a good idea to do it. So the story behind it is that for years and years, maybe 10 or 20 years, every now and then I would hear on the radio Scott Joplin's The Entertainer. And it just fascinated me. And I always thought, wouldn't it be great if I could play that on the piano? Because that's what he played it on. And I thought, but of course, that's never going to be. So I just put it in the back of my mind. And it stayed there in the back of my mind until a couple of summers ago. We went to a wedding of the son of a friend of ours, or the daughter of a friend of ours. And the day after the wedding, we went to the home of the parents of the bride. And their son, who is an excellent organist and pianist and very classical and plays all kinds of classical religious music, sat down at the piano and he played ragtime, some ragtime piece. I don't even know what it was, but it reminded me of Scott Joplin's Entertainer, and I was just transfixed. And I thought, how I wish I could play Scott Joplin's Entertainer, because this sounds a lot like it. Well, then I forgot about it. And then about a year later, my wife and I went to visit our younger daughter who lives in Montana. And at the time, in the house where she lived, she was renting, there was a piano. And it was the first time I'd had access to a piano in years and years and years. So I said, this is my chance to practice The Entertainer. So I got The Entertainer on my computer, and I sat at the piano with the computer in my lap, and I would look at the screen and put my hands over the screen and try to play the music. And I was stumbling along doing like the first bar or the first line of the piece. Well, then we left there and we came back to Proctor, where we live, Proctor, Minnesota. And we live in a condo, and it has a community room. And I thought, I'll go to the community room piano and I'll download the music and I'll practice. So I downloaded the music as soon as I got home, free. And I went to the community room, and there was no piano there. I somehow had mistakenly thought that there was a piano, but there really wasn't. So I was disappointed. So I'm walking back to the condo, and then I thought, I'll buy a keyboard because I'm going to do this. And so I did. I went to Amazon, and I bought an 88 key keyboard, a good quality keyboard, and it came a few days later, and I unpacked it and got it all set up in our guest room. And I sat down and I committed myself to spending half an hour a day learning how to play The Entertainer.
Which he does.
And I did that faithfully every day. Maybe it wasn't until I started doing that in January, and it was maybe in June that I skipped a day. I was sick or something. But I was very steady with it, and it was good for my brain. When I sat down at the piano and looked at the music, looked at my fingers, and tried to make the two things agree and remember what I had done, it was using parts of my brain that I don't normally use. And it was requiring me to pay the kind of attention to what I was doing that I don't normally pay. And so this was January of 2019 that I started, and the piece is 3 pages. There's a lot of repeats in it, but I labored my way through it, half an hour every day. I would just sit down at my little keyboard and practice. And by the time Thanksgiving and Christmas came, I pretty well had gone all the way through it, and I could play it. Now, I don't sound like Scott Joplin when I play it. I play it a little slower than it's supposed to be played, but it works. And so in my first year, I got to more or less master that piece, and I play it just for enjoyment. And recently, since I finished with that piece, I have started another piece of his, which is called a Maple Leaf Rag. And that's about 4 pages. And I've pretty well gotten on top of the first page. So that's my story. I think that I would recommend to anybody, but especially people who are older, and especially if they have time, one of the important things that we need to do to keep our brain active and from atrophying prematurely is to learn something new, learn some new skill. And it can be learning another language, or it can be anything like that. But I chose to get back to the piano. I had played piano as a teenager, but I stopped when I was about 17. And like I say, it was 70 years I hadn't gone near a keyboard until a year ago. So that's my story about how I learned to play the entertainer, and I recommend that to all of you. That's it.